Once upon a time, sorry, there used to be only real people in movies. Then came a real swell guy named Walt. He thought, let's turn drawings to life and create a multi-billion-dollar industry. And thus the art of animation was born. But there was a problem. These so-called animators didn't want to draw every single frame, so they decided to have the animators only draw the key frames, or the important moments of the story. And then they hired a bunch of nameless interns to draw all the frames in between. And then they named these nameless interns Inbetweeners, because they did the job of in-betweening. The art of in-betweening continues on today in modern animated films. The animators just do it digitally now. And so all those nameless interns showed us that the in-between frames are just as important as those key moments. Without the in-betweeners, animation as you know it couldn't exist.
Anybody have a favorite animated movie? I don't either. But hey, it's great to see you. Welcome to North Point. Good to have you. Y'all tired from spring break? Is that it? Good to see you. I want to welcome each of our campuses who are joining us as well. Shout out to Repmo. Good to see you, Republic. Good to know that you're here, Republic. We don't have that technology yet. That would be cool if I could have like a Republic, Nixa, Dream Center, Springfield. That'd be kind of fun. I could say I could see you. But welcome Dream Center campus, and welcome Nixa campus. Welcome online, and welcome Springfield. Patient, waiting for your time. Welcome Springfield. Good to have you. We're in this series we started last week. Preston kicked us off last week with the lost art of following Jesus, and we're going to continue that today as we're leading up to Easter, which is in 2 weeks. So 2 weekends from now, every one of our campuses will have all the details of what the service times look like for that weekend, a very unique weekend for us. We're really excited about Saturday and Sunday, March 30th and 31st. But the 29th, Friday night, the 29th, we are having an art show at 3 different locations. We have one in Republic for our Republic campus. We have one over in Nixa for our Nixa campus. And the Dream Center campus and Springfield campus, we have one in Springfield. So 3 different locations, and we have an art show. Some of you might have grown up with an Easter expression of the Stations of the Cross. It's been something celebrated for nearly 2,000 years in the church. Not all Christian expressions really focused much on it, but this is an art show that's going to highlight a traditional Stations of the Cross, which if you don't know what that is, it's an opportunity for you to be very intentional to look at the days, the moments, and the events that lead up to Easter. As we celebrate Christ's resurrection, we prepare our hearts and our minds by looking at the events of his death, why those are so significant. And we think it'll be a great opportunity for you to just kind of prepare your own heart as we get ready to celebrate Easter. So all those details are at your campus. You can certainly find those on the app and online as well. But this idea of art, as we're looking at this whole series, we just inherently believe that God is writing a story and you are in it. God is writing your story. So think about that. You are a story. If you're a story, and it's a book that God's writing, who's going to play you in the movie, right? I don't know if Ryan Gosling's going to play me. Probably not. Probably Danny DeVito, but that's all right. Who's going to play you in the movie of your story? And I'm wondering, think about your story. If your life is a story, what genre is it? Some of you, maybe it's suspense. Some of you, it's a thriller. For some of you, it's a rom-com. Rom-com turned dram. I don't know. Is it a comedy? Is it a horror? As action? What's the genre of your story? Well, today I want to talk about how God's writing a story. And it's interesting as we saw that video about early animation. with Disney and others. Actually, in 1910, they started using this tool of in between. So what they would have is as we just heard, we would have just key frames. And these key frames would be the elements of the story that stick out. And so the animator would draw out these key frames, and then they would have other people fill in the gaps, usually if it was a studio. And what they say is if you're going to show motion, like in an animated, think of the old Looney Tunes or something, right? Those early animations or Disney, if they're showing motion with the characters, it's because an animator had, here's where they start, here's where they go, and the in-betweeners filled in these frames. And they say that in most animation, there's 12 to 24 frames created for every second of animation. Think about it. If it's going to take Mickey Mouse 3 seconds to run across the room, then it's going to be up to 72 different drawings to cover those 3 seconds. That's crazy. I'm so thankful I'm an athlete. I almost had, but it's the core strength. Isn't that just... I never know why I do those 2 sit-ups, and it was for that time. And so anyway, is to run across the room is 72 different frames for 3 seconds. Now think about this. In a minute, that's about 1,000 pictures that are drawn for every minute of animation. So in a 90-minute to hour 10 or hour 40 feature film, that's nearly 100,000 drawings. But we know the key moments, but it's all those in-between motions that that fill out the story. Otherwise, it's just a picture book. So we're going to talk about our story, and I believe with all my gut that there are key moments in our life, right? If think about romance, right? Maybe a key frame for you and your significant other was 7th grade math class when you first met eyes. Okay, and then the key moment is when you took her to the Waffle House, right, for the very first time. The key moment is your first kiss, and maybe a key moment is when you propose. And a key frame could be the wedding, and all in all, and then you'll live happily ever after. But how many know if you've ever been in a relationship, there's a lot of fill in the gap, there's a lot of in between, right? Maybe it's the same with kids. Is maybe the first key frame is you've got that picture of the ultrasound, a big smile. And the second one is shortly after the delivery and they cleaned everybody up, okay? And you got the smile and here's my little one. And then the next key frame is like, them putting their face in the 1-year-old birthday cake. Actually, the birthday cake's not 1-year-old, the kid is, because I think that would be dangerous if the cake's 1 year. I don't know how that works. I don't even know the gestation cycle of a cake. I don't know why I said gestation, because I'm talking about a kid. So anyway, there's key frames, and then the kid turns 3. But how many know there's a lot of in-between moments of parenting, right? And in faith, it's not a lot different. Faith, maybe one of your first key frames of faith is a tension point that you had in your life, and all of a sudden you realize, man, I think I'm more open to hearing from God because of what I'm going through. Another key frame might be the moment you surrendered your heart to Jesus. Another key frame might be your baptism photo. Another key frame might be the first time you ever owned your faith by sharing it with somebody else. There's so many key frames in our life. But how many know faith is really a collection of the in-between? So I want to talk about our in-between times. Now, Monday, we had an opportunity to hear from a local business, Chris Rudolph and his team. And Chris focuses on capturing stories and sharing stories. And we've used him a lot with video over the years for different projects. And he was sharing with our staff on Monday about the power of story. So kind of my version takeaway of something I think is helpful for us as we dive into this idea that God has a story. There's key frames in our story. And there's a lot of in-between moments. I want us to think about this story, okay? So for every good story, you have one, it's called a dilemma. There's a problem. In every story, there's a problem. And in every life, there's a problem. How many of y'all have a problem? Anybody have a problem? And if you don't have a problem, you came to the right place today because we got extra. We would gladly share with you. Just stop by the problem booth in the lobby. We'll give you a problem. Every one of us have a problem, okay? There's a dilemma. There's a problem. The second thing is there's development. There's a path. You got a problem, but then you got this path. You got a dilemma, but then there's this development of the main character in the story. And then you got the destiny, right? That's the payoff. That's when everything works out, right? In the story. You got the problem, you got the path, you got the payoff, you got the dilemma, you got the development, you got the destiny. You've got all these things in every story. Think about the most classic Disney stories. Snow White. The problem is Snow White has an evil, wicked stepmama. And the evil, wicked stepmama doesn't like the fact that mirror, mirror on the wall thinks Snow White's the fairest of them all. That's a problem. So Snow White gets kicked out of her house. That's the dilemma. The destiny is, will she return back to be the queen of the land? So in this middle part is the development. And that's the story. It's where she has to wander the woods and meet 7 vertically challenged young gentlemen. And then this evil stepmother comes and she's disguised as an old hag and she's got her apple. She's like, "Apple, me dearie," or whatever it would be. I've never played that role. But and Snow White bites in the apple and she falls asleep into a deep sleep that only the kiss of a prince could wake her up. And they lived happily ever after. Every story, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Patrick Mahomes on his way to another Super Bowl, all those stories have a dilemma, have development, and then the payoff, right? The destiny. In our faith, we have that. So what we're going to do, we're going to dive into John chapter 2. John chapter 2 is the first recorded miracle of Jesus. And as we share that today, my assignment is to read it as clear as possible. I'm going to do my best. You have an assignment too. Your assignment is to recognize the dilemma, recognize the development process, the path, and then recognize the destiny, the payoff in every story. Okay? So you ready for this? It's a whole lot of homework for a Sunday. Okay, so let's go for it. So dilemma, development, destiny. So here's the story. John chapter 2 says this: on the 3rd day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, everyone say, "Womp, womp." Y'all got a problem. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." Okay. Why in the world are they out of wine? Some of you think, well, did they have cracked vases? Did they spill the wine? Well, there's a third possible solution. They had drunk it. The wine was gone because it was good wine. As a matter of fact, that's what later in the story it says. The wine was so good, everyone had enjoyed themselves. And in this day and age, they'd have this huge party. People would show up for days on end because it wasn't something like you show up and you go back home and you catch your favorite Netflix. You know, it was something you would show up from a long ways away and you'd hang out for a few days. And the host with the most would have all the wine and the party, and they're expected to keep entertaining the guests. It's a big role, right? And the wine was gone. Maybe because Jesus' friends were super thirsty. Maybe because more people showed up. Maybe they didn't follow the wedding protocol of send out, for every 100 invites you send out, 75 show up. Maybe like they had a huge ratio. We don't know why, but everyone showed up and they drank a lot apparently. And then we also see the first evidence of why Jesus wasn't married. And it's his mom said something as an observation. "We have run out of wine." Now, every married man in this room knows that is not merely an observation. That is called a hint. And Jesus did not speak wife, okay? And so he's like, okay, why do you involve me? I know if Leanne ever says, "Jeremy, we're out of beverages," she's not just stating something she observed out loud for fun. She's saying, get your backside in the line at Sam's Club and get us some more beverages now, okay? It is an assignment, not an observation, but Jesus didn't know that. The second piece of evidence why we know Jesus was not married is his next word. Woman. Every married dude in this room knows you might get away with saying that one time. One time. "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come," Jesus says. And then Mary said to the servants, Do whatever he tells you to do. I don't know why Mary said that. Did Mary know something that we didn't know? The answer is yes, okay? She had seen an angel had given her kind of... Did Mary see him do crazy things growing up? I don't know, it's not recorded. Did Mary just remember the fact that the angel had said, this is God's son, and she's been waiting. When's the time he's going to reveal who he is and why he is to the entire world? Is this the day? We don't know, but Mary was excited about this moment. She's like, Jesus, it's time to do your thing. And she says to the servants, do whatever he says to do. And you know what we call that? There's a fancy church word for that. Discipleship. Discipleship is doing what Jesus says to do. So, let's go back to our homework. Do we know what the dilemma is? No more wine. That's a dilemma. The destiny, spoiler, if you like suspense, plug your ears. Jesus makes it happen again. He miracles the wine. He restores the wine. That's going to be the destiny. This whole story, though, is about the development or discipleship. The path between your key frames in life are often the in-between moments no one will ever mention at your funeral. No one will ever celebrate at your retirement. But it's the things you do every single day in between your dilemma and your destiny that position you for your next key frame. A lot of us wonder what our future is going to be like. It's going to look a lot like your present. It's just going to take you a long time to get there. It's what we do in our present days that ends up positioning us for our future key frame. It's the in-between, life in the in-between. And so that's why I want us to look at this story. In this story, it's not about water, even though it's about water. And it's not about wine, even though it's about wine. It's about you. It's about me. It's about our story. It's about a dilemma. It's about a destiny. And it's about this process in between. So Jesus has these servants. And Jesus says to the servants, it says, nearby stood 6 stone water jars. Okay, here's the interactive portion of our time. Okay, all campuses, we ready for this? How many stone water jars are there? Okay, on the count of 3, everyone yell 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, hang with me. We're going to have to do a lot of math for a Monday. Well, it's not even Monday. Okay, that's how I'm going to need you. I'm going to really need you. How many stone water jars? And it says that these stone water jars, it says take 6 of them, the kind used for ceremonial washing, each of them holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Now we're going to do some multiplication. If you got 6 stone water jars, and each of them 20 to 30 gallons, let's say 25. 6 times 25 is? Oh, you're not so confident now, are you? You're all 6. It's 150. Okay, 150. So think about this, 150 gallons of water in the average stone jar. That's not true. 25 in the average stone jar times 6, 150 gallons of water. Now, here's what they say, that the average gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. If the average jar is 100, or the jar is 25 gallons, and there's 120 to 150 gallons, then that means we're talking about 1,000 pounds of water in a stone jar. Now, I don't have a stone jar at home. I got Tupperware. And if I had 6 Tupperware filled with water, I can't do that. Your waiter at Olive Garden can't even do that, and they're good. 6 stone jars, how much does that weigh? I have no idea. We know the water alone is about 1,000 between all 6 of them. That's a task. Sometimes Jesus is going to ask you to do something that seems a lot more difficult than you have the ability to do. And you know what we call it? Fancy church word, discipleship. I am struggling today. Discipleship is any time you're asked to do something that you wouldn't naturally do, but you're going to say yes because you believe Jesus told you to do it. Discipleship is the hard path between my dilemma and my destiny. Discipleship is the in-between of life's key frames. A lot of us have moments in life that seem very spiritual when we talk about it. But the most spiritual thing we can do is every single day do the right thing and do it again the next day and do it again the next day. And you know what it feels like? A lot of hard work. I can't imagine if I was there and Jesus looked at me and said, hey, we're out of wine. I'm going to do a miracle. In order to do this miracle and give you the payoff and show you the destiny, I'm going to need a favor. Do you love it? Are you the type of person that loves it when someone says, hey, can I ask a favor of you? I'm always like, depends on what it is. Like, why don't you ask and then I'll tell you. I'm not going to give you a blank check of, yes, I will do your favor, okay? When my wife asks me to do a favor, I'm always like, keep talking, let's talk. Okay, let's negotiate at the end here. And so yesterday, she's like, do you have 30 seconds? I'm like, depends, okay? It depends on what you have in mind. And when she says, I'd like you to help me move a gorilla rack, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Okay, that's not what I was thinking. Okay, no, I don't have the time for that, right? And that's heavy. If Jesus says, hey, Jeremy, can I ask a favor of you? Can you take one stone water jar and go and fill it with water? I'd be like, yeah, no, totally. Yeah, the stone heavy one. We got any other type of material water jars out here? Like stone? That's cool. I mean, it makes sense. You want the stone one? I mean, I could do it. I'm strong, but the average dude probably couldn't, right? And so I'm like, stone water jar. And it would be one thing if it's like the great hall. It's like, hey, Jeremy, here's the great banquet. We're having this awesome wedding, and it's about to have the father, daughter, bride dance. But before, can you take this jar, go back to the kitchen, and fill it with water? Like, this is first century Near East stuff. Like, where is their water source? We have no idea. Is there water source out back? Is there water source a mile away? Where are they going to fill this stone jar? That's a lot of work. It's a big favor to ask, but that's called discipleship. Sometimes discipleship is a long direction of doing what God tells you to do, hoping there's a payoff, but feeling like it's a lot of work. And so it says the servants, they did so. It says Jesus said, fill the jars with water. It says, so they filled them to the brim. Talk about work ethic. If it were me, I'd be doing the math on how heavy this thing's going to be. And I'd get halfway there. I'd be like, that's fine. They've actually already drunk plenty. Okay, so half's fine. Filling it to the brim, when you got to carry that stuff, that's called faithfulness in the assignment. They bring this back. How much sweat these suckers got. They're like, man, this is crazy. Then Jesus told them, now draw some of this out and take it to the master of the banquet. What is in these stone jars? Water. We don't even know where they got the water from. If it were me, I'd have been looking for a shortcut. I'd have been like, man, the water source is the best water is about a mile away, but half a mile away is our neighbor's bathing pool. And no one will know the difference, right? But this guy knows this water, it's water. And Jesus says, I want you to serve it to the master of the ceremony. And so he does, and the master of the banquet tastes the water that had been turned into wine. He didn't realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the $5 chuck wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you've saved the best to last. Okay, let's go keyframe. If this were the keyframe in the story and Disney was animating this story, I would bet a keyframe is when they're serving the water to the master. I bet the keyframe has the master, and he's got a ladle of water over the stone jar, and he's sipping it, and his eyes are big because he's kind of like, ooh, pleasant. His lips are kind of smile, and he's drinking it. And so we see that in the picture, right? And we see over here the servants like nervous, Nellies, but kind of excited watching because they knew where the water had come from, but they're kind of surprised at the pleasant face of the master of the ceremony. And then you got Jesus on the side. He's like, wink, 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 right? Look what I did, y'all. That's what I see in the key frame. The key frame is a dilemma. There's no more wine. Key frame is this is the best wine we've ever tasted. And the miracle is the development. What happens in the story is in between. So as we look at our life, one thing that I wrote down in my notes that I think is true for all of us, we all have a dilemma and we all have a destiny. We've already talked about that. We all have a dilemma. I also believe we all have a destiny. And I don't believe that God's going to solve all of our problems on this side of earth. I don't believe that we're going to get everything we want. That's not what a destiny means. What I mean is there's a time where God will show up in the middle of your problem. That's destiny. And maybe his answer is he's going to provide you with rich community while you go through the hardest time you've ever gone through. Maybe he gives you everything you need, not everything you want, and that's his miracle provision, and that's your destiny. Maybe destiny is, man, I just got through this tough time and I'm still walking, and that's your payoff. Some of us have had such tough times, and the answer isn't all of a sudden now rich and fame, but the answer is God's faithful and he's sufficient enough. He gives me enough strength for today's challenge, and that's his destiny for my life. And I want you to know, if you're neck deep in a problem, the hope that you can cling on to and the prayer that you can pray is, God, I know that you have a destiny for me. I pray that I would follow my path to be able to experience that. If I position myself the right way, I will be positioned for the next key frame in my life. Sometimes we pray for the destiny to come find us in the middle of our dilemma. I've got a problem. God, would you solve it? Bring your destiny right here. But most of the time, God says, you got a problem. I've got a destiny, but you're going to have to walk. I'm not going to just snap. Bippity boppity boo, taste this. Sometimes it's going to be a lot of work. Sometimes it's going to be a lot of days in between that no one talks about, and you wonder if it's going to work. If I'm one of those servants, I'm thinking, how hard of an assignment is this? Like, will anyone ever appreciate? Because here's the truth of the story. If we look at the story, everybody at the party enjoyed the product, but it was the servants who recognized the miracle. They knew what it had been turned from into. They knew how hard they had slaved to get this water here, and they knew it wasn't enough, and they knew it still required Jesus to touch this thing and to transform it into something awesome. And my ability to follow Jesus becomes the discipleship path that leads to development. My ability to do the tough things, my ability to follow whatever Jesus says becomes the discipleship path that allows me to be developed. Here's what Paul says, what James says in James chapter 1. He says that blessed are you when you face trials of any kinds, because that you know that the testing of your faith, dilemma, it develops perseverance, and it must grow so that we're not missing or lacking anything. This is the lost art of following Jesus. The lost art of following Jesus is to be able to hoof it a lot of steps, carry something you don't want to carry, do something you don't want to do because you know God told you to do it. And you trust that God at the end of your journey is going to take what you brought to the table and he's going to make it more than enough. That's discipleship. Getting out of debt. It's way easier to say, God, will you bring your destiny right here to my dilemma? I want a check in the mail. I'm going to swing by, come and go, and play one more time and see if that's your provision for my life, right? No judgment if you do, but we do have an offering coming up. But I'm just saying, is some of us, we want God to bail us out. But a lot of times, God's saying, your freedom is going to be in a painful journey, but you're going to develop. Maybe you're, it's just gripped with addiction. You're like, God, if you would just remove all these desires from my life. And I've heard stories. He can. But a lot of time, it's an invitation. Walk this way. Survive today. Make it happen today. God's transformation happens often when we've positioned ourselves for the product. Now, it's not up to us. That would make us God, so don't take that out of context. I just believe he invites us to have a role in this journey. And so my path always has this leadership development process. So my role in this story, your role in this story, is to do what Jesus says, even if it's a hard path. That's my role. Now, to illustrate this role, I'm going to invite my friend Martz out here, and he's going to model for me Wes, even better, okay? I like it. He sent you? Oh, yeah, he was here first service. He didn't like the assignment, okay? That's all right. But you know what? He's going to miss out. Because, friend, you are going to have the blessing of a hard path right here. Okay, so would you give Wes a hand for his bravery or his naivety, okay? Okay, so I've got a few things for you to write down, and Wes is going to model this for us, okay? What's our role in the story? So you're all going to wear something. If you wear a cape, this is a na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. A Batman cape. Wes, can you put that Batman cape on? It's, yep, and it's going to go on the backside, kind of like an ICU robe backwards. Okay, so, ready? There you go. They don't have it in an adult costume, but it looks good. And actually, Wes, I'm sorry, it goes best with this. Okay, so, yeah, perfect. Okay, so now just kind of give us a little flowy, capey. Okay, very good. That's it. Oh, very good. Okay, now think about this. If you put on a cape and that's your garb of choice, are you a Comic-Con guy? Nope. Not yet? Okay, so here's the, if you do, no judge, if you put on a cape, that makes you the hero. And if you're in this story and you think you're the hero, you're like, we're out of wine? Ha-ha! No problem, I've got it. Ta-da! And here's what you do. If you try and be the hero and you're not designed to be the hero, you're not delivering anything that's worth talking about. You're giving them a bunch of bathwater. So we don't want to wear the cape. Okay, second thing then is this. This is where it gets good. Matter of fact, you can take that off. This is, and you guys are expecting a baby. Okay, so I'll let you keep this afterwards. Okay, so, that's a bib, and it matches very good, okay? And you can put that on. Yeah, you're going to really stretch, and you're going to feel it on your larynx. Okay, so there you go. You got it there? Just, okay, there you go. There you go. When you turn purple, we're going to make sure we finish the illustration quickly, okay? So here's the deal. If you wear a cape, you think you're the hero. But if you wear a bib, your mission is to be served by others. This, Wes, is the number one reason why March sent you out here. Okay, so here's the deal. I've always said in leadership I would never do something to you that I wouldn't do for me, but this is not true. Okay, so here's the deal, Wes. Okay, you're doing it for Jesus. You're just doing it for Jesus. And here's the deal. This is a butternut squash, and I know you love butternut squash. Okay, so this is just get it in there. Zoom. Okay, so very good. Very good. You like that? Yeah, delicious. And, okay, so, yeah. Some of us, what does that look like? Some of us are like, serve me, feed me. And we think life is all about us getting our way. More. Wes is hungry, right? And maybe we show up at church and we're like, I want that song. I don't like it when pastors do silly junior high illustrations. Tough luck, right? It's because that's wearing a bib. Or we show up at work, we're like, they're not paying attention to me. No one's saying hi to me. Take off the bib. If you're offended at how people are treating you, it's because you think for some reason you're there to be served. If you're the servant, you're like, what a stupid party. They're out of wine. Jesus' disciples drink too much. Take off the bib. So you can take off the bib. And this is for you if you want it later, okay? But I don't have time. So, Wes, here's the deal. This is the question. Will you wear an apron? Because if I wear an apron, then my mission is to serve others. Now, I like it. Doesn't he look good in an apron? Yeah, he does. You look great. That's a North Point apron, too. I think North Point, that's our mission. We don't want to be the church that's like, dun, 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 here we are. We're wearing a cape. You're welcome, Springfield community. You're welcome, Republic. You're welcome, Nixon. We are here to save you. Our mission is not to be like, everyone should come to our events. How come y'all are persecuting us? Like that's being a whiner. But we want to be here to serve. What are your needs? When I show up at someone's house and I see them wearing one of these bad boys, I know it's going to be good eating, right? And in this story, Jesus didn't ask them to be heroes. He didn't ask them to whine. He said, would you do the hard work? Because on the backs of hard work, I'm going to pour out the sweetest product people have ever tasted. So Wes, you get that apron. That's what you get. Or you can have both. Okay, so thank you. Give Wes a hand. Give Wes a hand. My question is, which are you wearing? Your overall demeanor. Are you the know-it-all that has an answer? Your morality is not going to save the world. Your answers aren't going to save the world. That attitude ain't going to save the world. Are you the one who's just, no one's affirming me, no one's noticing me? No, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be noticed, affirmed. And I hope in community, you're reminded of your role. That's the rich thing about community. But if I focus on that, then I'm wearing a bib. I want to show up as a servant. That's the in-between. That's the behind the scenes. It ain't a key frame, but that positions you to experience the next key frame. It's called discipleship. Jesus produces wine. Good wine, the kind of wine that surprises people. It says in Psalms that taste and see the Lord is good. When people, wow, unexpected, that is really good stuff. And you know what the biggest tragedy is when people like you and me turn the good wine of Christianity into water. That's when we take something that should be sweet and we make it just about rules and about attendance and about morality. Now, one side note, I'm a big fan of all of those things. But when we take something supernatural and sweet like Jesus and we make it judgmental and arrogant and some religious competition, we have transformed wine into water, and no one's lining up for that. So here's the last thought that I have on this. If I've got a dilemma and I'm praying for a destiny, my role is development. God, what is my role in this situation? As a dad, what's my role? What do I need to do to grow? What do I need to do in between so that I can help celebrate a key frame here? As a church, I believe there are a lot of thirsty people. 40 million people have left the church in the last 25 years who were into it. That's more people than came to faith in all of Billy Graham's crusades. 40 million. Who are like, I don't think it tastes very good. So then we say, okay, God, I know you create the sweet stuff. God, will you take something, church, faith, Christianity, that to many people, for whatever reason, they've run out. And would you use whatever I can bring to the table for them to experience the sweetness of you talking? And if we're going to help see people enjoy that product, it's going to take a lot of work. And so I put it this way, that if I will turn, because when God gives me an assignment, I like to whine, call the ambulance, because I'm whining, right? And we have a choice. When we have an assignment, we can whine or we can walk. You can't do both. When God says, take these heavy pots and fill them with water, I can be like, wah! Or I can take a step. And if I will turn my wine into water, he'll turn my water into wine. If I will take my complaining, I don't want to do this is a hard next step, into work, or another word for it is worship, then he'll take my act of worship and make it more than enough for thirsty people all around me. And as a church, that's what I'm praying over the next couple of weeks. I pray that we would use whatever opportunity we have on a day that, for whatever reason, seems to be, there is the most open day for people to have a conversation with Jesus. God, what can I do to position my friends to be open conversation? And I'm going to sit back and watch them taste this and pray that you've transformed this from water into wine. Every day, I want my work to become wine. Like this morning, before I came up here, I don't want to go through the same old shtick. I said, God, I don't want to take this good wine of your word and water it down with Jeremyisms. God, take what I have to say. I know it's just water because I know where it came from. And God, before we pour it out, will you transform this water into wine again, that people would say, I think Jesus is talking to me. And when I do that tomorrow with my attitude at home, my attitude at work, and when you do that, don't ever stop and say, God, never forget to stop and say, God, take what I'm doing and do what only you can do. Otherwise, we're wearing the cape. How do we know if we're wearing the cape? If we haven't asked God to do the miracle. We think we're the one commanding grapes and we can't. So as a church, my prayer is that all of us would recognize, man, God's orchestrated you for someone else's key frame, and it's what you do in between when no one's watching. So I'm praying that God would give you the confidence, the strength to carry out a hard next step so that you'll be at the right place at the right time for someone to taste the right product from Jesus. So I want to pray for you. I want to pray with you. Father, I pray today that there would be many people in the next several weeks who taste and see that the Lord is good. God, I pray that you would take every effort, every conversation, every investment in relationship, every service that we have, and we wouldn't just serve water, but that you would transform all these things, all these efforts, and let it be something that really comes from you. God, I pray for those who are in this place, who they're in the middle of a dilemma and they don't know what to do, that you would give them a next step and confidence, even if it feels like a painful, lonely, in-between next step, that you are working all things out in them for their good. I pray that we would develop and be able to say, blessed are we when we face these trials, because we know that the testing of this develops something inside of us. God, I pray for those of us today who just needed to be reminded from you that you still make this good stuff, the sweet stuff. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.